She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious. She was evil. Epstein was Pinocchio, and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey.
But here's the part that's going to make you never watch daytime television the same way again. That wasn't just Ricky Gervais talking about some random powerful woman. He was talking about someone who spent 2 decades building an empire on a single promise: kindness. Someone whose face was in your home every single day. Someone who convinced America she was different.
Hold on a second. You know what they're trying to do? This thing is buzzing. Hold on.
The phone rang, the conversation stopped, and for years, nobody understood why. But now it all connects. This is a story about 2 people operating the exact same playbook. A story about a pattern so dark that when it finally surfaced, Hollywood didn't just panic. It started silencing people. A story about warnings that were broadcast on live television, dismissed as conspiracy theories, and then proven true by actual government documents. And it all starts with a man who knew something was wrong years before anyone else was willing to look. Jim Carrey wasn't always seen as a warning sign. He was a comedy legend, rubber face, catchphrases, the guy who made you laugh so hard you forgot about everything else. But somewhere along the way, something shifted in him. Or maybe, and this is what people are starting to understand now, he woke up. Rewind to 2014, Jimmy Kimmel Live. A studio full of people expecting comedy gold. Jim Carrey sits down across from Kimmel, and within minutes, he does something that makes the entire room go silent.
Is that a gang sign? Have you,
Oh, like you don't know what it is.
Now, here's what people who were in that studio audience say. The room was dead silent. No laughter, no clapping. The audio you hear, the fake crowd reaction, was added in during editing to make Jim look unstable, to turn his warning into a punchline. But Jim didn't stop there. He kept going, getting more specific, more direct, naming the system itself.
Here's now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things.
Think about that for a second. Jim Carrey just described a hierarchy of control broadcast to the nation on a major network, and then something extraordinary happened.
Hold on a second. You know what they're trying to do? This thing is buzzing. Hold on. They're trying to turn us into, consumer drone.
That phone call ended the conversation. Just like that. No explanation, no callback. The subject never came up again that night. The curtain came right back down exactly the way it always does. But ask yourself this: why would a single phone call stop a conversation that fast on live television right when things were getting real? The internet has been asking that question for over a decade. What Jim Carrey was describing on that stage wasn't rambling. It wasn't a celebrity meltdown. He was describing something very specific. A system of control that operates through entertainment, through distraction, through people in power positions who know exactly what's happening and choose to stay silent. And years later, when the Epstein files dropped, something incredible happened. The things Jim said started lining up with actual documentation. He talked about secrecy. The files revealed networks of secrecy. He talked about powerful people coordinating behind the scenes. The files showed exactly that. He talked about people in entertainment being part of a larger system. The files confirmed names from modeling, television, and Hollywood. One name that kept appearing was Naomi Campbell, but when asked directly about it, Campbell denied everything.
Managed to make it clear that you were not aware of Epstein activities. Did you know who he was?
Yes, I knew him. I was introduced to him on my 31st birthday by my ex-boyfriend Flavio. He was always front and center at Victoria's Secret shows.
Did you suspect what he was doing?
No. And what he's done is indefensible.
Perfect denial, confident, offended by the accusation. But then the documents came out. Campbell's name appears in nearly 300 files. Emails showing she requested flights on Epstein's private jet, records of visits to his mansion, victims who saw her at his island. So you have a public statement on one side, documentation on the other. A gap between what someone says and what the paperwork shows. That gap, that's the signature Jim Carrey kept pointing at. That's the pattern that repeats itself over and over. Deny in public, get exposed by documentation later. Now we need to talk about someone who understood that pattern better than anyone. Someone who was born into power, inherited a playbook, and spent her entire life perfecting the art of operating invisibly while controlling everything. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't come out of nowhere. Her father was Robert Maxwell, a newspaper mogul with Israeli intelligence connections and documented government leverage. When Robert died, his children inherited something valuable: a Rolodex, a system, and a way of operating that looks legitimate on the surface, but functions completely differently beneath. Ghislaine took that inheritance and built something extraordinary. A network embedded in entertainment, modeling, and elite circles. A system where people could be moved, manipulated, and controlled without anyone asking too many questions. She understood something critical. Real power isn't about being the most visible. It's about being invisible while controlling the people who are visible. And then Ricky Gervais made a statement that sent shockwaves through the internet.
Epstein was Pinocchio and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money, he had her contacts, but Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
Ricky didn't soften it, didn't equivocate. He was saying something that journalists and celebrities have been afraid to say. Ghislaine Maxwell was the operator. Epstein was the front man. She was smarter, more strategic, and more dangerous. Because once you understand that, you start asking the real question. If Ghislaine was that embedded in American entertainment and media, who else was connected to her network? Ellen DeGeneres rose through the ranks of Hollywood during the exact same era that Ghislaine Maxwell was embedding herself into American entertainment, the 90s and 2000s. The same time period, the same circles, the same ecosystem. Ellen didn't get to the top by accident. She built an empire on a single promise: kindness. Be kind. That's what her whole brand was. A talk show host who was different, who genuinely cared, who used her platform to do good. But there's something about that promise that's important to understand. When you make kindness your entire brand, the only thing more powerful than delivering on that promise is the betrayal when people discover you never meant it at all. And in 2020, the mask didn't just slip, it shattered. One viral clip, that's all it took.
Her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, oh, I had this birthday party, and Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, no, I did invite you, Ellen.
Ellen had been caught on camera being manipulative, playing the victim, trying to embarrass a guest because she wasn't invited to a birthday party, on live television, in front of an audience, and then the floodgates opened. Thousands of stories poured out. Former employees, people who worked in the hallways. Everyone suddenly had a story about the real Ellen.
You were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person.
Think about that. In 2024, a rule: no eye contact. That's not management. That's not even bad management. That's psychological control. That's the operating system of someone who runs on fear and hierarchy. That's the behavior pattern of someone who never had to answer to anyone and learned to operate by intimidation. Sound familiar? That's exactly how Ghislaine Maxwell controlled her network. Through fear, through hierarchy, through making sure that people understood they were beneath her and that looking her in the eye was a violation. Ellen didn't just adopt that playbook. She perfected it for the television age. But Ellen's control wasn't just about psychology. It was about actual harm. Real, documented, on-camera cruelty that people are still talking about years later. The most famous example involves Mariah Carey. In 2008, Mariah came on Ellen's show while she was pregnant, early in her pregnancy. She hadn't announced it publicly yet because she wasn't ready. She had her reasons, private, personal reasons, and Ellen didn't listen.
The other thing is that people are saying that you're pregnant. There's rumors. Don't discuss that.
Ellen knew Mariah had a history of miscarriages. Ellen knew she was in the vulnerable early stages of pregnancy. Ellen knew she didn't want to announce it, and Ellen made her drink champagne on live television to pressure an answer out of her. If she refused, everyone watching would know without consent. Shortly after that interview, Mariah suffered a miscarriage. That moment revealed something essential about Ellen's character. She will use her platform to hurt people for entertainment. She will know exactly how much damage she's doing and do it anyway. She will cross every boundary because she knows that when you have enough money and enough power, boundaries become suggestions for other people. That's the Ghislaine Maxwell playbook applied to daytime television. But there's another person who lived in that world, someone who knew Ellen intimately. Anne Heche wasn't just Ellen's ex-girlfriend. Anne was someone who lived inside that world. She saw what happened behind closed doors. She understood the system. And in 2024, after 20 years of silence, Anne finally decided to talk.
You like your money because that's why I broke up with you. Do you like sitting on your piles of cash? Because guess what? It gets you exactly where you are. And by the way, baby, it's what you wanted then, and I hope you're liking it now. Cheers.
Anne was describing something specific. Not love, not partnership, control. Ellen's obsession with wealth, with power, with material accumulation. That's what destroyed their relationship. But then Anne went deeper.
Out of money, or you broke up with her because...
I broke up with her because her goal was to have a lot of money, and mine was to find love, and hers was I want 60 billion. Good luck. Our forks are never going to meet.
Ellen didn't want a relationship. Ellen wanted a vehicle for power and control. And when Anne wouldn't conform to that, when Anne wouldn't make Ellen's goals her own goals, Ellen used the only tool she knew how to use.
She didn't live in that loving kindness.
Ellen blackballed her, used her influence in Hollywood to damage Anne's career, made it harder for her to land roles, isolated her professionally. This is the exact same silencing tactic that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein used. The same control structure, the same outcome. Make sure the person who knows what you did can't speak about it because they're too damaged to be believed. After years away from the public eye, Ellen decided to make a comeback. She recorded a Netflix comedy special, and instead of apologizing, instead of showing actual remorse, she did something extraordinary. She turned the scandal into a joke.
I got a show business. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, because I'm mean. Yeah. Yeah, you can't be mean and be in show business. No, they'll kick you out.
Do you see what she's doing? She's acknowledging that she was mean, but she's framing it as funny, as absurd, as something that happened to her, not something she did. She's making the audience complicit in the joke. She's asking people to laugh at the very thing that destroyed her career. And then she gaslights the audience.
I was in therapy for a while trying to deal with all the hatred that was coming at me, and at one point my therapist said, "Ellen, where do you get this idea that everyone hates you?" And I said, well, New York Times, Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, Us Weekly. I think Elmo may have said something recently on an episode of Sesame.
This is gaslighting. This is reframing legitimate criticism as irrational hatred. This is a victim narrative deployed by someone worth $450 million who owned a media empire and used it to control people. Rob Schneider understood exactly what was happening.
She actually has the nerve to say that she was run out of Hollywood. This person
with $100 million in her pocket.
$450 million, according to Forbes. That's a low estimate.
Yeah.
Because so now she's out there saying, I was run out of Hollywood. She's actually reportedly complaining about how hard it is for women in America with the double standards.
Look at Oprah, how hard it is for her.
Oh, she's got, like 10 houses, Ellen DeGeneres?
Michelle Obama, look how hard it is for women in America. They're hurting.
They're going to let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows.
Ellen isn't a victim. Ellen is a beneficiary of systems of power, and she's using her wealth and her continued access to try to rewrite history. But rewriting history is exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell tried to do. It's exactly what people in power do when they want to maintain control. Now we get to the part that makes people whisper when they talk about this. Because once you start looking at the timeline, once you start asking who knew what and who was talking about what, a very dark pattern emerges. Anne Heche was preparing to expose Ellen. She was giving interviews. She was about to release information about the blackballing, about the psychological abuse, about what really happened between them. And then in August 2022, just 2 months after Ellen's show ended, Anne Heche was in a car crash, a severe car crash.
That morning, Anne walked into a hair shop in Venice, California. The owner said she walked in, saw a red wig up on the shelf, wanted the red wig. He told her it wasn't styled. She said no worries, made the purchase. He recognized who she was and asked for a selfie. They took a selfie together, which is still up on his Instagram. The owner of the wig shop, Richard Glass, said that she was completely normal, didn't seem impaired, she wasn't slurring her words, thought the interaction seemed completely normal.
The doorbell camera footage shows Anne's car zooming down the street at an extremely high rate of speed, blowing through a stop sign and plowing directly into a house. She was trapped so deep inside that the car caught fire. 45 minutes, trapped inside a burning car. The official story says she was unconscious from smoke inhalation. But then there's the helicopter footage.
The disturbing part of this case is aerial helicopter footage showed Anne Heche being put onto a stretcher. You can see a body in some type of bag on a stretcher being wheeled into the back of an ambulance. When all of a sudden, the zipper breaks open and you see Anne Heche emerge suddenly out of this body bag, what looks like a body bag, and prop herself up as if she's trying to get off the stretcher or get out of the bag. They push her back down and she's put into the back of the...
If Anne was unconscious, how did she sit up? How did she try to get off the stretcher? The official story has inconsistencies, and these inconsistencies matter because Anne Heche was about to talk. She was about to expose Ellen. Then 4 months after that crash, Stephen Twitchboss died. Stephen Twitchboss was Ellen's executive producer. He was beloved. He was the heart of her show. He was the human connection in a machine that was revealed to be cruel and controlling. But after the 2020 scandal broke, Twitch came under immense pressure. Why? Because he publicly supported Ellen even after the toxic workplace allegations surfaced.
After the 2020 toxic workplace scandal, Twitch had come under immense pressure for publicly supporting Ellen. Quote, people were looking at him like, why are you still supporting this woman? End quote. He stated that he believed that Twitch's mental health had deteriorated significantly in the period following the scandal.
He was trapped, loyal to someone the world hated, suffering the social consequences of that association. And then he died. The official report said it was self-inflicted. Several investigative journalists have said that the note he left behind pointed at Ellen as being the cause of his mental deterioration. Think about the pattern. Anne Heche was preparing to expose Ellen. She had a car crash. Stephen Twitch boss publicly supported Ellen. He died. Is this a pattern or a coincidence? Let me give you another pattern to consider. Virginia Roberts was a prominent accuser of Epstein. She was one of the few people willing to speak publicly about Epstein and Ghislaine. She sued Prince Andrew, she fought back, and then she died. The official report said suicide. An accuser dies. A witness dies. A producer dies. A girlfriend about to expose you dies. Are these coincidences or are they part of a pattern? Now, this is where some people are going to say we're reaching, but Ricky Gervais and other investigators have pointed this out, and it's worth examining. Ellen's talk show stage set. Look at it closely. It looks remarkably similar to the design of Epstein Island. Identical palm trees, identical furnishings, identical color scheme, the same soft furnishings, the same architectural flow. Does that prove anything directly? No. Could it be coincidence? Sure. But when you're building a narrative about someone's connections to a network, these details matter because they suggest knowledge, they suggest exposure, they suggest familiarity with spaces and aesthetics that only people inside that circle would know about. Ellen's home has also been analyzed by people who track occult symbolism, and what they found are references to Marina Abramovich, the performance artist famous for spirit cooking rituals, visual connections between her world and the world of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. Again, this doesn't prove criminal activity, but it suggests cultural overlap. It suggests a world she's deeply immersed in. Then there's the coded language. Ricky is saying, I hope this isn't true. I'm presenting what's being alleged, but I'm praying it's not real. Because when he knew they were coming after him, Epstein ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid. That's how you dispose of bodies. And there are mentions of Zorro Ranch, a 7,000-acre property Epstein owned in New Mexico. Congress is now investigating. Federal investigators are looking into it. Is Ellen mentioned in those same coded emails? According to online investigators, yes. Her name appears in Epstein-related documents. Is she specifically mentioned in coded messages? That's less clear. But the fact that her name appears at all, combined with everything else we've discussed, creates a picture. After years away from the public eye, Ellen is attempting to make a comeback. Pixar is bringing her back to voice Dory in a new Finding Nemo short. Dory, the character famous for the line, "Just keep swimming," the optimistic, forgetful fish who moves past pain and trauma without dwelling on it. The irony is almost too perfect. Ellen wants everyone to just keep swimming. Forget, move on, stop digging into her past, her connections, her behavior. But Rob Schneider and Ricky Gervais aren't swimming away, they're swimming toward the truth. And the internet knows something is wrong. Because when someone tries to rebrand this hard, when someone tries to gaslight this aggressively, it usually means there's something worth hiding. Let me be clear about something. We don't have definitive proof that Ellen DeGeneres is directly involved in criminal activity. We don't have court documents connecting her to Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein. We don't have a smoking gun. What we have is a pattern of cruelty on her show, documented and verified. A pattern of silencing people who tried to expose her. Anne Heche being the most prominent example. A pattern of operating from wealth, power, and entitlement while claiming victimhood. A pattern of connections to the same circles as Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. And a pattern of people around her facing suspicious deaths or outcomes. Is this proof of a conspiracy? No, but it's enough to raise questions. It's enough to justify investigation. It's enough to explain why Ricky Gervais, someone with nothing to gain and everything to lose by making these statements, went on record and called Ghislaine Maxwell's evil, worse than Epstein, because he knows something. The Epstein files continue to be released. More names are being revealed. More connections are being exposed. Congress is investigating. Federal investigators are looking into coded language, into Zorro Ranch, into the full extent of the network. And when those full files come out, if Ellen's name appears in any significant way, the conversation will shift dramatically. Because right now, we're operating on allegations, patterns, and the testimony of people like Ricky Gervais and Rob Schneider. But what if there's documentation? What if there are emails, financial records, flight logs? The fear isn't just that Ellen might have been involved in something darker than we know. The fear is that if Ellen was involved, then how many other celebrities are? How deep does this network actually go? That's why people are afraid to talk about this. That's why mainstream media won't touch it. That's why Ricky Gervais sounds genuinely disturbed when he talks about Ghislaine Maxwell. Because once you start pulling on this thread, the entire tapestry of Hollywood might come unraveled, and nobody's ready for that.